I am just so excited. I love this woman. She is a mentor. She was my teacher in ministerial training. And boy, did I get awakened. I'll tell you. She slapped me upside the head more than once. But I know you're going to open your heart to her, and when you do, she's going to crawl inside, and you're going to take her home with you, because she is phenomenal. She just, off the top of her head, I want to be like you when I grow up. Anyway, it is my honor, my privilege, to introduce to you Dr. Sue Rubin. A heart.
Yeah. Maggie. Nah. Good morning. How have you been since last we met? Hi, Mark. Hi, Sherry. You know, the mind just keeps rolling, doesn't it? Forward and backward. And yet, where is that all happening? Right in the present moment. That picture was taken a while ago, you guys. Got to get a new picture. Observation, sidebars. With me, there's lots of sidebars. So,
tangents here.
Yes, thank you. So, a heart act to follow actually came about in a kind of wonderful way, and I'm borrowing it from a former student of mine who's now a minister up in Edmonton with the Center for Spiritual Living Edmonton Metro. And a very dear friend of mine, Maggie, passed away from the days that I first started the center up in Edmonton in 1985. God, this broad's been around for a while. Sidebar, tangent. And so she has been experiencing some physical challenges over the past several years, and as always, we've stayed in touch. And then she made her transition about a month ago. And the opportunity, of course, was to go to Edmonton or not to go to Edmonton. And as things turned out, I just was not. I orchestrated things to turn out consciously or subjectively in such a way that I wasn't able to be there. So I started coordinating with Reverend Tim Peterson. Anybody ever come across Tim at Asilomar, in the Asilomar days? Good, then I can say whatever I want about him. You won't know the difference. Oh, live stream, I forgot about that. Oh, hi. To all our friends. And Steve, if you're watching, you're nuts. Go play. Go do something. So Tim and I started going back and forth on what topic and how we're going to do this and how we're going to get the word out to many centers, because there were originally the one center that I started when I went up there, and subsequently there were three. Two of the others being founded by two of my students. Pretty darn spectacular. One of them just closed. Oh, please don't. So Tim and I went back and forth, and he said, well, we'll get it all together. You know, let's just treat, and we'll put the word out up here, and you let people know on your Facebook page. And I said, topic, we want to give it a heading. And so out of the blue, do you ever discover things out of the blue of which there is no such thing? It's out of some place in us that has collectively, individually, consciously or unconsciously, found its mark right on universal mind, and it's now providing the receiving of that which has been asked for. And so Tim came up with a hard act to follow. And it is hard to follow the action of the love intelligence, which is forever moving through us. And I thought to myself, how can one in these times, and given what's going on in the world around us, ignore that spiritually? You know, up to this point, I think a lot of us have created the same cocoon that we experience when we gather on a Sunday or in a class or at an event, or when we're on many of the webinars that are calling us to that deeper self. And it's a cocoon. It's like we're kind of separate from, even though we practice the principle of oneness theoretically, we're separate. That's happening out there. All that stuff that went on and is still going on used to be out there. Well, come to find out, the picture of the inner world becoming the outer world is drawn much more closely to where our inner circle, our cocoon of safety and complacency has been shattered. So I feel it's very important in these times to address exactly what's going on in the world and how can we, as models for divine essence being revealed in the humanness of our everyday endeavors, how can we bring the best of that to who we are? So I'm drawing chapters from my own experience this week and putting it up for the larger conversation to really take place from the vantage point of the spiritual principle that when all is said and done, when you strip away all of the seeming violence and divisiveness and racism and neo-Nazism and all of that which is creating the inevitable results of violence and anger and separation in the world, how do I retain that adherence to the spiritual principle which insists that regardless of the appearance, I judge not by the appearance, I dig under the facts which I'm facing. I'm no longer entitled to the luxury of putting my head in the sand. That just isn't working anymore. And to come out from under there and stand. You know, my favorite metaphor, every time I do this, number one, it's the signing for God, and it's also that vertical line that marks the cross, that extends far beyond the heavens and deeper beyond the bowels of the earth. And yet, where does that go? It goes out to the extended horizontal lines of life through which we express what we say we know. And ultimately, what we know, time for that, you know, I take these little seemingly innocent water bottles that are filled with gin. Now I can tell you what I really think. So it's how do I take that truth? There is one. E pluribus unum. That's the motto of the United States. The many from the one. No matter what we're looking at, the different faces, the different ages and stages of life all around us, what people are doing and what people aren't doing, what people are fighting for, what people are fighting against. What I believe, what you believe, and yet beyond all that, it's as if you took, remember the old Etch-a-Sketch? And you remember you did your thing, and this is the way I think it is, and life is very good, but I've got to take care of myself, and I've got to make sure that my needs are met, and everyone is here to serve me, me, me. Well, then it's like life shows up and says, we've got something else for you to look at that's going to take you to a deeper place if you're willing to go there. So you shake it up, and boom, you've got an empty screen upon which to start drawing your design of it. But rather than doing it the way your intellect will lead you, it's thinking with the mind of your heart. Diane Harmony made that statement years ago in a book called The 5 Gifts of Abundance or something. Remember that book? That was her term, and it's so applicable that what we know now from the world of emotional intelligence, that the mind is one aspect of what seemingly does the linear thinking. But at the depth of our being, in that heart that has to ultimately unify with the mind, is the heart, the love. That is a hard act to follow. How am I, in this time and place, expected to love those who are doing what I don't perceive as good, kind, just, gentle, compassionate, or wise? How can I still retain that notion that Ernest Holmes offered when he said, if you haven't begun to love everyone right now, you must do it? And that doesn't mean I invite you to dinner or I say, neo-Nazi, come be my friend. But I do it in my soul because I know the origin of that which has motivated everyone is the degree to which we do know that I am created in the image and likeness of love, of wisdom, of harmony, of creativity, of kindness, of generosity of spirit. And unless I am that walking example, I don't get it. The Christ said that on the cross. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. Those who would appear to be persecuting and harming and hurting and damaging me physically, because they don't know who they are. To the degree we can embrace that wholeness, then there in and of itself is the essence of love. And to the degree that I have not quite adapted, and none of us have quite adapted to the full measure of who and what we are. You know, the beautiful song that Joy sang. How we ultimately treat each other physically does not always match how we treat people in our minds. Because I can put on the happiest face, the kindest face, the most benignly benevolent face, and boy, what's going on behind the scenes, you wouldn't want to know. And yet you do know because you do it too, in your own way. And I think that has to be stripped in this time and place. So I thought to myself, to maintain that interior equilibrium, in equanimity and equipoise, in the midst of everything that's happening, where every headline becomes a call for prayer. Everything that appears out of control becomes my necessity, the faith that I have, not in God, although it is transcendent and it's immanent. It's here I am, and it's through what I know with who I say I am. That is the call, to maintain my awareness consciously, to maintain my conscious awareness of my oneness with God. Let's say that I maintain my conscious awareness of my oneness with God together. I maintain my conscious awareness of my oneness with God. Because it's true, whether you like it, know it, believe it, accept it, buy into it or not, it's still true. But if you and I don't consciously know it, recognize it, and unify with it, virtually, it's non-existent. So I thought, my God, there's a total solar eclipse tomorrow. Yes? Yes. And so what does that mean? I thought, well, the scientists want to discover out of that occasion, which the last time it happened was 1979, they want to gather scientific data. What does a metaphysician, someone who practices the presence of God consciously and deliberately, what is there for us to see? Is there an accident that the North American continent is now able to see it completely? And yet, what are they going to see? They're going to ultimately, for less than 2 minutes, at 10:41 tomorrow morning, they're going to see the moon traverse between the earth and the sun, where the sun is blocked out and there is what? Darkness. Well, you're going to tell me that that has nothing to do with the darkness that is evolving in life around us as we know it? Oh my God, it's the balance, the equilibrium, the equanimity, the harmony, the oneness that the inner and what has been germinating and gestating and building out of desperation, out of fear, out of anger, out of frustration, out of dissatisfaction. It's got to find its energetic outlet. And if the universe is one, and there's only harmony, unity, and oneness, obviously there's a coordination which we don't get to see as vividly and obviously as what's happening tomorrow. The darkness. That's called the umbra. Reminds me of an umbrella that covers. And that is where the inner dark shadow of the moon, literally, is called the umbra, and that's what obscures the sun for those brief moments. However, if we take this to another level, okay, so the darkness within myself, my fears, my anxieties, my resentments, my unforgiveness, the places that I'm still holding grudges, all of the places that I've gathered up and sometimes have covered with the spiritual foe of like pretending. I'll pretend everything's fine, everything's good. And I come from a teacher who absolutely, Tom Johnson, would not in any way, shape, manner, or form experience or acknowledge anything other than God is, I am. When I went to Canada and was writing in creative thought and sending in treatments, and I developed for myself the awareness, I've got to do the 7-step treatment. I've got to, at some point where I know I'm meeting a strong resistance from within myself, I've got to address that very deliberately, just as we're being called upon to address what's happening out there as some aspect of myself that is up for cleaning, for clearing, for so vividly seeing the darkness that finally I look at it and I'm able to then say, you are nothing in my life. I thought you were up until now, but those days are over. And so around that brief, almost 2 minutes of darkness, when the moon covers the sun, there's a halo, and it's called the corona. And of course, that's what scientists want to see. What's happening? What's going on when that's happening? So the forces of light and the forces of dark, seemingly, metaphorically, always exist, and yet that's only born out of what Einstein called time and space, which is a subtle, perpetual imagination of time, which is an illusion. So if indeed, amidst all the darkness, you know, it's a funny thing that people who are desperate have a very strong voice. It's the voice of the ego, you know, that same voice. Remember years ago that screamed out of the window in the movie Network, I'm sick of tired and I'm not taking it anymore. Remember that? That's what's happening now, and yet a group that gathers with that energy on fire draws a lot of energy to it. That's the impartiality of the universal mind of God. It really has no notion or judgment about what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. It's simply taking the force of the strongest impulse of energy, and voila, here is my life. Here are the people who are walking through it. They've walked through my mind first, and now, damn it, they're walking right into my government, my country, my e pluribus unum, where I can see that the one shows up as the many, and the many shows up as the one. So, solar eclipse, very important, and I suggest there's something we can do. So regardless of where you are, where I am, it starts, I think, at 10:15, the traversing and the arcing across the United States, but at 10:41, what if we each took personal responsibility tomorrow morning, whether you're at home, at work, gardening, playing, studying, taking care of whatever or whomever? What if we all did stop and pray? What if we did a spiritual mind treatment at the same time the universe is showing us the darkness of our own souls that has collected to such a pitch that there's nowhere else for it to go but out? What if, indeed, the harmony of nature, as always, teaches us the lessons that we can learn in our own experience? Will you pray with me? 10:41 tomorrow morning. And I'm also going to place it on my Facebook, and I'm going to place it on our minister's listserv. And I had suggested to Lainey, and Dr. Steve, Reverend, is he a doctor yet? No. Dr. Steve, that if the ministers are gathering, stop what you're doing at 10:41. You know, we put out these lofty ideas, but again, how many of them do I practice? The other thing that occurred to me was I was watching a movie I had not seen, Collateral Beauty. Anybody? 2 people, so again, I can make it up as I go along. So the abstract principles of this story of a beautiful couple whose daughter, 6 years old, dies, and he is bereft, and he decides to write 3 letters to the universe. The first one is questioning the existence of love. The second one is questioning the whole issue of time. And the third one, another bugaboo, death. So you've got love, you've got time, you've got death. Love, oh, I want it. I want it so bad. I'll keep my skin young and tight and all buffed up, and I'll dye my hair, and I'll keep my body fit, and I'll look good, because I know that looking good is my guarantee somebody will like me, love me, stay with me, tell me I'm okay, that I'm enough. So we seek for that which we already are. And yet to come to that realization is to come to the notion that I can face the facts of life. Time does march on. When I realized how many years I've been around, I used to hint at it. I used to insinuate that, well, you know, the Academy Awards and I were born the same year. Anybody know when the Academy Awards made their first presentation? When? 1928. 1928. So add it up. Yes. I've got a message because I'm 89 years old. So, if that's the case, and if indeed I'm grateful and I'm humbled by it, I'm awed by it, why has that not been more my message? To rather than intimate it and insinuate it, to say, look, your stories as a 50-year-old, as a 60-year-old, as a 70-year-old, they don't fly with me, because I'm here to tell you I headed to Canada to start a ministry with a U-Haul on the top of my car when I was 57 years old. So there's no excuse other than the ones that we buy into collectively, which creates that darkness that we bury and hide and want to gloss over. If I put enough paint on, I'm sure that no one will notice, that it will be just fine. And I remember that subtle shift. One day, I was in a restaurant, and the waiter didn't ask, "What can I do for you, miss?" He said, "What can I do for you, ma'am?" And I thought, oh my God, I just aged. When did I become a ma'am? And don't even talk about when I was eligible to claim senior discount. Oh no, I didn't do that for years. I mean, the things that we conjure up based on a myth, based on a story. And yet, if this isn't the perfect time to tell a bigger story, I don't know when the time ever is. And the old Talmudic teaching, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And if not me being for something more than myself, what's the point of it? So love, it's who and what we are, and that is a heart and hard act to follow. If I can pierce the barriers of judgment and criticism and blame and attack, you know, Mother Teresa said it. It's like your rallies are wonderful, they're great, but if you have one anti-this or anti-that, don't invite me, I'm not coming. I only go where there is someone for something. Do you remember Ernest Holmes' Sermon by the Sea, his last talk at the Sillamar? Find me 1,000 people who are for something, for truth, for justice, for love, and for the realization that time is what we make it. Time is the thing, oh my God, I never have enough of it. Oh, it's happening too fast. Oh my God, will I have time to do, to accomplish, to simply live? All of the questions, when in reality I have as much or as little as I determine that I deserve, that I accept as a spiritual, eternal being. Although spiritually mature, you know my famous favorite affirmation, I am spiritually mature and eternally young. Will you say that with me? I am spiritually young and eternally mature. Or was it the other way around? It works both ways, let's face it. You got to have one to have the other. So, the death. Don't talk to me about death. You know, Woody Allen said it. I know it happens, but I don't want to be there, you know, when it occurs. No, death, we still have the bugaboo. We are not fully grasping the realization that ultimately I am living to the degree I at the same moment embrace the inevitability of mortality, that someday this body won't be here. I had my car detailed yesterday, and two lovely gentlemen who migrated here from Mexico 20 years ago, brothers. And all of a sudden, after I came and I picked it up, and it's so gorgeous, check it out, it's parked right there. He said to me, just like, you know, I'm paying him and taking care of business, and it's all very, and he says to me, "How old are you?" And I said, "Why?" And he started to cry. He said, "You remind me of my mother." And I went, "Well, is she okay?" "No, she's dead." so it's like, thanks very much. And then the question, who can resist it? Well, how old do you think I am? He was most complimentary, but he said that his mom died a year ago, and he had such a deep relationship with her, and she taught him so much, and particularly coming with a foreign language from a foreign country and adapting and seeing the struggle that he and his mom and dad went through, that he has not stopped missing her for a day. And he said, "I don't know, just," I can cry when I think of it. He said, "Just something about you just touched that motherly love, that hard act to follow in the midst of business and struggling to make a living and worrying about our families. Are they going to be okay?" We're faced with really in the realm of the human, in the realm of form, it's scary and it's hard and it's tough. And yet this is the moment that while all of that's happening, while the eclipse is happening outwardly in the cosmos, it's happening right where we are. And therefore, there is something we can do. Well, what can I do, you ask? You can meditate every day. First thing in the morning, no exception, no retreating or backing off from it. Start with 5 minutes, 4 minutes, but set the tone before awareness is easily grabbed. You're out in the world and you're tuning in and you're plugging in and you're opening the iPhone and you're listening to messages and you're watching news reports. Where do you think your mind goes from that point on? It's a lost cause. Literally, symbolically, the cause.
Now I know why.
Yes. It's the absolute which is calling us, and if you gather that, garner it, reel it in, first thing in the morning, before it has a chance to wander. Let's face it, the ego talks really strong and really loud. And if that's allowed to take over, then everything about my day is off kilter. Somehow, again, I'm more prone to being influenced by other people's thinking rather than staying attuned and aligned and tethered to the truth of who I am. So meditate and do your spiritual mind treatment. Every one of us does not need a license to practice being a minister or practitioner. You don't need a license to practice the presence of God in your own unique fashion. to really allow yourself to be the space where a creative impulse that now is that halo, that slim possibility of light surrounding the darkness, has the opportunity to find access through you, through me, to be models for what we've been studying and reading and listening to and taking notes about. Somebody saw the notes that I scribble, my habit of like 35 years about what I want to talk about. It's like, you're still doing that? It's like, yep, that's the way I can think it through. That's my way. And yet, does anything that I said in there get talked about? Probably not. Because there's something wiser and smarter and braver and bolder and more ferociously aware of its unity, inseparable, undivided with the presence and power of God. That's the message. Pray, align yourself, be mindful during the day. Don't slip so easily. Think of that Etch-a-Sketch and say, no, let's erase that. God is, I am. God is, I am. And when the world says, what the hell are you doing? It's like, it's your business and mine. It's God's business, and that's the way it really is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And keep standing for something, and remember 10:41 tomorrow morning. Drop what you're doing and go. Yes, that's it. Set your phone, set your mind first. Your phone will follow. Okay, so. Okay, so this is a perfect opportunity. You know that when the bigger question is asked, the bigger answer is provided. So I know there's someone, something, perhaps it's yourself, that would benefit from a conscious and deliberate time of prayer right here and right now. So if you want to speak into the room, that person, that situation that you want prayer for, just take a moment to again center within and let it be heard. Life, the world, Charlottesville, Barcelona. So whether spoken or articulated or subtly left in my mind's eye, I know that everything and everyone truly is touched by the garment of truth, right here, right now, for what is known in mind as wholeness, as harmony, as peace, as goodness, as love, right here is known everywhere, for there's only one mind. So I let it extend and project itself outward, rippling, to touch the minds, the hearts, the souls of every name mentioned, in the ways of physical health, in the ways of mental health, emotional stability, in the ways of full of creative action, spiritually motivated socially, in the ways that fill the cup of abundance to financial overflowing for everyone, everywhere, known and unknown, and for the joy of truly taking love and letting it dictate the course of my every action, my every word, thought, and deed, and in gratitude for knowing the wholeness forever is, and by the conscious recognition of its existence as the reality of one and for all, it is done, for the word spoken is a word of enforcement, a law unto the words hereby declared. So I give thanks for knowing it's a new day. It is lit with the interior light, the spark of eternity that I identify with, which I know about everyone, which I know to be the absolute truth relatively expressed. And for this and so much more, I give thanks. Letting it be so as together we all declare, and so it is.